You guys came from all over the country to be a part of this. This is a significant day. This is a day that the two of you are celebrating the beginning of your life together, and we hold marriage as a big deal. We really do. But what God calls this is He calls this a sacred moment. And it is for this reason that everybody's come in to be a part of this, to celebrate with you. And I love your story because as you were telling me your story, your journey officially began over 20 years ago. And I don't know if everybody knows your story, so I just thought I was going to tell a little bit of your story if they don't know. That Craig and Linda both worked at Red Cross years ago and met together and have always been close, always been good friends. That Craig would go over to Linda's house whenever she needed help and was always there for her. When Linda's girls were growing up in high school, when they needed something, if there was a flat tire or something happened, Craig was the one that they called to take care of, and he's always been there. And it was the girls who began to go, "You two seem like you're dating. It seems like there's something going on here." And so fast forward to about 8 or 9 years ago, and they went on their first date. And Craig took Linda to a steakhouse, and I understand you actually washed your truck.
I did.
Which maybe the last time that's happened.
Yes.
And your relationship kept growing. And the thing that's neat about your relationship is you have always been there for each other. And I love your story because Craig tried to propose 3 times. For whatever reason, it didn't work out. And so around Christmas, he said, "Okay, I've tried to do the romantic thing. It's time to get married. We are getting married." And you probably had no idea that that day 20 or so years ago would lead to this day. But I believe that God knew, and that God has had a plan for the two of you and for this moment. That I believe your marriage comes down to 2 relationships. It's your relationship with God and your relationship with each other. Here's what Jesus said. Jesus said the greatest commandment of all, as He said, is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. He says the second greatest is to love your neighbor as yourself. That those 2 things, to love God, to love each other, that is what's going to hold your marriage together. The first part of this is to love God. And your story is God has always been part of the foundation of your relationship. He's always been there. Part of what connected you both is your commitment to God. And the most important thing that you can do is to always put God first. When that happens, everything else falls into place. You know, here's what I found is the secret of marriage, is that you love the way that God has loved you, and you forgive the way that you've been forgiven. It's the secret of how God does this, that God becomes the foundation of your marriage. And the irony is this, is when God is the most important thing in your life, it's when your marriage is the best and the strongest, and you're the closest to each other. That oftentimes I do a wedding, I talk about the love triangle. That if you have God up here, and Craig, as you're growing towards God, and Linda, as you're growing towards God, the point that you're closest to God is the point that you're closest to each other. And I think that's the way that God intended it to be. First part of this is to love God. Second part is to love each other. And that's why we're here. That's what brings us to Vegas right now for this moment. And your relationship started out as good friends. And I think that's the best kind of marriages, that they grow out of that friendship and it grew into love. And I love what each of you told me. Because Linda, what you said to me, I don't know if you remember this, you said, "He cherishes me. He always puts his family first. And he makes me a better person for being with him." And Craig, you said to me, you said, "I knew that she is the one that I was always meant to be with." It's your words. I want to read to you a scripture that we talked about, and it's a famous scripture where the Apostle Paul talks about love. "Do you take this woman to be your wedded wife, to live together in the holy estate of matrimony?"
I do.
"Do you promise to love her, to comfort her, to honor and keep her in sickness and in health, forsaking all others, keeping yourself for her only, so long as you both shall live?"
I do.
"Linda, do you take this man to be your wedded husband, to live together in the holy estate of matrimony?"
I do.
"Do you promise to love him, to comfort him, to honor and keep him in sickness and in health, forsaking all others, keeping yourself for him only, so long as you both shall live?"
I do.
Well, at this time, if you would just pass your flowers off, I want you to join hands and face each other and repeat after me. Craig, I'm going to start with you. I, Craig, take you, Linda, to be my wedded wife, to have and to hold, from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, till death do us part. As God is my witness, I give you my promise. Linda, I'm going to ask you to repeat the same. I, Linda,
I, Linda,
take you, Craig,
take you, Craig,
to be my wedded husband,
to be my wedded husband,
to have and to hold,
to have and to hold,
from this day forward,
from this day forward,
for better, for worse,
for better and for worse,
for richer, for poorer,
for richer, for poor,
in sickness and in health,
in sickness and health,
to love and to cherish,
to love and to cherish,
till death do us part.
till death do us part.
As God is my witness,
As God is my witness,
I give you my promise.
I give you my promise.
We're going to now further seal your vows by having the exchanging of rings. So if I could have the rings at this time. Well, the rings have long been a very appropriate symbol of marriage, that they're fashioned in the most valuable kind of material. And what that represents is the value of those vows that you just made to one another. They're in an unbroken circle, and what that represents is the unending love, the undying commitment that you're making to one another. It's a symbol. Everyone who sees it will know you are off the market. You belong to somebody else. And it's a reminder. May it remind you of this day, these vows, this moment, these friends, and the promises that you're making to one another. So, Craig, I'm going to ask that you take this ring, the symbol of your love and your commitments, place it on Linda's finger, and repeat after me. With this ring, I thee wed. Linda, if you would take this ring, the symbol of your love and your commitments, place it on Craig's finger and repeat after me. With this ring, I thee wed. Well, at this time, can I have the book? I'm going to read a couple of readings. For as much as Craig and Linda have consented together in holy matrimony, witness the same before God and these family and friends that are gathered around you right now. Having given and pledged your lives to one another and sealed your vows by the giving and the receiving of rings. The authority given to me as a minister of the gospel and by the laws of the state of Nevada, I pronounce you husband and wife. Woohoo! Craig, kiss your bride. Well, it's my pleasure to be the very first to introduce to you Mr. and Mrs. Craig Badger.
I'm happy. Thank you so much.
Beautiful, perfect.
Thank you
As
so
windy
much.
as it's been all day today, and I mean this is perfect and overcast.
It stayed beautiful.
And
It turned out perfect. Perfect. Wonderful.
Pastor Shane, can I have one more blessing for each of these wonderful people who came so far, not so far, to meet us, that they get safe travel home,
Yes.
and that they're
Absolutely.
blessed in their own relationships.
Absolutely. Let's pray that.